Was Sisu Road to Revenge a sequel that warrants being made? Hello and welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Sisu Road to Revenge. Was it good, bad, or somewhere right in the middle? How does it compare to the first, in your opinion? And taking it into my general thoughts. Overall, this is a story that follows about the same general storyline as what we got in the first Sisu, but this time it's a new direction, new motivation. They're going off to have Termilla Johnson go on home, and what we're following about with this older man character that's sort of semi-similar to this John Wick storyline, pulls about an interesting dialogue within the nature of all the action and carnage that's pulled out. There's more action, there's more carnage, and so this film is more bloody, and it utilizes the R rating well to the nature of what this plot asks of it. And while I was speaking on the language of this older man, he doesn't speak at all throughout this film, so you're all relying on emotions within everything that he is expressing on his face, doing throughout the dialogue, and what you visibly see on screen, which is a great technique within what the director can utilize within the story, to where you can see the background, learn about the main character you're following about, while not having to speak a word, still following about with these other sort of villains along the way, where this one man is escaping from prison and he is requested to go out and finish the job, kill this one guy. And so the nature of the whole plot becomes compelling by that basic standard, is even though it's relatively a copy and paste of the first film, with the first film being about the motivation to get the gold from him, this is continuing on the legend that this old man, army veteran, war vet, is trying to escape after 2 years from the original film that we've just gotten, and being able to follow about within the sequel. There's a lot more vehicles, there's planes, trains, and automobiles in the literal sense, and so being able to navigate it by the same structure narrative that the first film does, what we get is the same director and the same writer pulling off something that's very clever in the way it's intuitive for the uniqueness in one sense, while making it feel fresh, even though it's relatively the same storyline, just carrying these different pieces of plot devices to go about along the way, protect the dog that this old man is protecting with his life, and going about carrying on his home in order to find his home back home in Finland, to be able to go down to a settlement of peace and to welcome in new people into his life, that becomes emotional by the resonance that has to offer. Which takes me into the positive. Overall, this story is greatly emotional within the stakes, within the action it goes about doing, within what it's falling about. And while there is a relatively familiar story found within it, it's a relatively basic premise to follow about, and I'm still a fan of what we're getting out of this Sisu character that's falling about, and the Sisu definition is prominent within this plot more than ever because of the carnage, everything that goes about. His road to revenge is a literal and metaphorical road that becomes so compelling from the different plot. What we got out of Stephen Lang, what we get out of Jamila Timmerson is good within their performances. Stephen Lang as the new villain or head villain to this franchise is doing something so evil, and I love what he's done in the past within the Don't Breathe movies, and carrying him on to this one. There's a great matchup against each other, the fist fighting, everything, where you suspend your disbelief to the fullest extent, and all of the action, all of the brutality that it takes on. That's where the John Wick comparison comes in, but it's a old man war veteran that becomes compelling because of the different connection you can have with that sentimentality that this character carries within his past life, even though we haven't seen those visuals of him fighting in World War II. We see the battle scars and we see him get wounded time and time again within these films. So that's what really offers something that even though it's relatively a familiar story, it's somewhat fresh by still wanting us to go back in and see new, fresh scenes of what we've seen before, which takes me into the negative. Ultimately, there's still some problems that I have with the first film that repeat themselves within this one, to where there's not always a consistency of the ultimate suspension of disbelief, to where, yes, I knew going into the first and this film that things will go wild, things will be able to survive the situations that they otherwise shouldn't, but it's the ultimate choice that this character goes into certain situations. There's certain choices with the plot that the writing could avoid completely impossible situations. They could still go about doing the same actions, but in a more believable way. But instead, they go in a less sensible manner, make it go more wild than ever, and it doesn't necessarily make the brutality and coolness of impo- surviving impossible situations any cooler than a more sensible situation would bring out of it, even though it would still be impossible to survive because it's this old man war veteran. Yes, he's trained. Yes, he can do all these things. And so you're believing that he can do it, and you're understanding this is a premise that even if he gets shot, even if certain things happen to him with stab wounds or whatnot, that he'll get out of the situation. But it's this inconsistent motive that there's lighter motives for the decisions made that he can get out of, but then there's the random, more heavy decisions to do these out of this world type of impossible situation to survive, impossible to defy physics. And I get that's what you can suspend your disbelief to, but it's those random choices where it comes out of the blue that ultimately throws me off, at least for a first time viewing of both of these films. Maybe it will be something I go back to and become more sensible about, but it's because of those situations I have to hold it back again. It kind of takes me out of the loop of being able to sustain what my watch value is for this film as a whole. So that's just my personal thoughts on Sisu 2 Road to Revenge, which I have to rate a simply 7 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Sisu 2. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're waiting for this review and now going to see this film or not, based on my review, make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So let's just all and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.